Hello, my quilty friends. It's Stacy of Stacy Creates Stuff, and this is week 5 of our Haven Quilt-Along. This week we are working on the second block of the quilt, and that is called Mosaic. Now, this block is made entirely of half-square triangles. If you haven't already joined the mailing list in order to get the PDF instructions for each of the blocks, then you can check out the link below or this QR code, and that will sign you up for the mailing list. If you are coming in mid-stream of the Haven Quilt-Along, not a problem. There is a series of emails that will catch you up to our current state. And if you like the colors that I am doing the Haven quilt in, we have the painted desert and then also the forest lake. Both of those are available as kits from my favorite quilt shop, Vintage Pink and Green. The link is also in the description below. All right, let's get started on how to make this very fun and relatively simple block. Block number 2. We are going to be making a total of 4 of these blocks. It is called Mosaic, and it is a 16 patch block. Each of the units, there's 4 units across, and there are 4 rows, and each of these units are half square triangles. So let's have a little refresher on how to make a half square triangle. Then all of the units are going to be done that way. So this entire block is made up of all 4-inch squares, and we'll be getting 2 half square triangle units out of each pair of squares. So we're going to start by pairing up a white and teal 2. The purpose of the sandpaper board is to hold the fabric and keep it from slipping. If you try to mark your fabric, either from your cutting mat or a table, it will tend to want to slide. So the sandpaper helps keep it in place. I am going to mark my square using my quilter's quarter rule. And the way that you use this for half square triangles is that in the indented channel that's down the center of the rule, you are going to make sure that you can see the points of the square. And then holding that down, you're going to mark on each side of the rule. I'm using an air erasable pink pen so that it shows up. And there you can see the lines. Then I'm going to take and match my 2 fabrics together. This would be right sides together. Of course, on batiks, you really can't tell which is the right and the wrong side, so it's fine. And then I am going to sew on each of those pink lines. Now, similar to the flying geese like that we did last week, I am going to sew towards the inner section here. I don't need a perfect 1/4 of an inch because we're marking the actual seam line. So I'm going to sew just inside of this right line and then just inside of this left line, keeping my actual seams more in the center. And then once I have those sewn, I will just cut them apart and we will trim down our half square triangle units. First, let's sew these together. I'm back with my 2 half square triangle units that I got out of the 1 square of white and 1 square of teal. But now I need to trim them. So I'm using my rotating mat. You do not need a rotating mat, but I find it helpful. And I'm also using a biased square ruler. Now, I've had this one for years, and I don't think this exact one is available anymore. But in the description below, I have a link where you can find a similar type one, as well as rotating mats, the quick quarter ruler, sandpaper board, all of my favorite tools. We want to trim this block down to 3.5 inches. So the first thing to check is that it is larger than 3.5 inches. And then you are going to place the seam line along the diagonal. And I just want to make sure there's enough hanging off there to cut off and still have some past the 3.5 inch mark. Now I can just rotate my mat around, and this time I'm lining up not only along the diagonal, but also along the 3.5 inch mark on the ruler. And then I just cut off the excess. And there we have our perfectly trimmed 3.5 inch half square triangle unit. So I'm now going to go through following the instructions in the block guide and make a whole series of half square triangles that I need for the blocks. Then we're going to lay them out and start sewing the block together. I have a video tutorial on making half square triangles and flying geese that goes into a little bit more detail than my instructions here today did. Included in that video is also how to use a regular quilting ruler. As long as it has a 45-degree angle on it somewhere, you can use a regular ruler to trim your half square triangles. All right, all of my half square triangle units are now trimmed, and it is time to lay out the block. So as I mentioned earlier, it is a 16 patch block. There are 4 units across and 4 units down. And we're just going to lay out these units. I'm just following the diagram that is in the block guide. If you haven't downloaded the block guide, it is available for free from my website. There is a link in the description below. All right, and you can see that there is a large diamond shape in the center with some white corners coming off of it. This again is called the Mosaic block. And to put it together, I'm going to sew these 4 units together to form a row. Sew a total of 4 rows and then start sewing the rows together. Here we have our 4 rows sewn together, and now I'm just going to go ahead, sew the rows together to form the block. And here we have a completed block number 2. This should measure, unfinished, 12.5 inches, and we are going to make a total of 4 of these. So I have 3 more to go. And here is the layout for the Painted Desert colorway. And there you have it, my friends, the Mosaic block. Now we make a total of 4 of these for the quilt. They are all identical to each other. And you can see now that our design wall is starting to have some shape to it. That one center block isn't so lonely anymore. Next week, we are moving on to a block that is a little more complicated than flying geese and half square triangles, but I'm going to walk you through step by step. Until then, why not check out this?